Welcome, everyone. I appreciate you coming. Most of you attended the fundraiser that we had a few days ago and helped us. We raised what? I think it was $1,200 or $1,300. So the SAD group and the athletic captains, that I believe, are going to split that. So thank you for being involved. I know it's a beautiful day out. I know you're very busy, and I say that all the time, because you guys are the ones who take school, for the most part, very seriously. You do the next right thing. You're trying to get into the best colleges. You're trying just to do the next right thing, and that's really admirable. And I don't think you hear that enough. You know, we have a lot of presentations for people who have made mistakes and have had their problems. I assure you, though, and it's not one that I feel happy about assuring you, is that by the time your hair is white, like mine, and you color it, or you shave your head, or whatever, you will probably have encountered someone that you care deeply by the use and misuse of substances you may already have in your life. And it's a very private issue. It's not something like, well, if Dad broke his leg, you would be, you know, you tell all your friends. But if you found Dad loaded on the couch, drunk out of his mind at 3 o'clock, it wouldn't be something that you'd want to share. And that's really what helped us get ourselves into this situation. I've mentioned before to you, and I know I bore you, I've been at this school for over 40 years. So I've seen a lot of people come and a lot of people go. Some of my students have become United States judges. Some have become United States senators. Some have become doctors, lawyers, crackheads, prostitutes, all of the above. And you people are the ones that don't ever get pulled out of class, and you're the ones that don't usually, like, people don't think you need to hear the story. Anthony Sideri is here to give you his story. Some of you might remember him when you were in the grammar school. He spoke at a couple grammar schools. And he's had quite an experience. And the one thing I want to tell you, I grew up in the 60s. What does that mean? What's that? Well, it was a different time. That's good. See, you already, yeah, that's good. Things were, yeah, well, different in a lot of different ways, and they're the same. But there was a lot of room for mistakes. You know, you blow one stinking test, and your GPA goes down a little bit, or your A goes from an A plus to an A minus, or whatever. Today, there's very little mistake. There's very little room for mistakes. You smoke a little weed, you drink a little alcohol, and then before you know it, I'm not saying because you do that, this is going to happen, but there's just not a little room, because right next door to us is one of the largest cities of distribution of the most deadly chemicals ever to hit our world, literally. The three drugs, the heroin, the fentanyl, and I can't even pronounce the last one, cartonol, something like that. It is so dangerous that the first responders, when they go and they get a 911 call and they're trying to do Narcan and try to bring them, they have to wear masks, because if you breathe it, even if you're not trying to use it, if you breathe it, if you get it on your finger, you could possibly have a massive coronary. That's how freaking dangerous it is. So I know fentanyl is so far removed from your experience right now, but I'm just saying that it's that close, that we could go from a party after football to my first week at the dorm at UMass or Harvard, and before you know it, one little decision, and bang. And I think I told most of you, and that's why it's really personal to me, is that I've spent the rest of, a majority of my life working in the drug and alcohol field. It means I have a lot of experience in that world personally, but found a way out of that world. But also, from a personal level, have had 3 children. One's a sophomore who just got a scholarship at DeBarros, a little one who will probably buy 2 books. for her to become a lawyer. I have a son, Ryan, who lives up in Burlington, Vermont, who just got married and who's extremely healthy, and he runs a division in a solar city out of California for alternative energy. And then I had a son, well, he's still my son, Matthew, who attended this school, who sat in that chair that no one's sitting in, who is now dead from an overdose. So only 6 or 7 months ago, I got that knock on that door that no one wants to get. And please, I know some of you have heard the story, and I don't want to make you sad, but it's the truth, that I got the knock on the door, and I saw my grandson, and I saw the men in blue, and I saw 2 of my former students, who are now policemen, with tears in their eyes, saying, "I'm sorry, Mr. Brouder, to tell you that your son is dead." So that's really sad. And I'm barely holding on as it is when I'm telling you this, but I think it just needs to be told. Today is a happy day. Not for me. I don't know if I'll have many of them. I hope not to be the guy who lost his son. I hope to be able to experience joy, and I have. But it's very difficult. It will never be the same because I'm bringing up his child. But today is a story of redemption. $5 to one person who can tell me what redemption means. Does anyone know what redemption means? Maybe you know what it means, but it's hard to define, or you don't want to define it now. It means rebirth. And Anthony's going to tell you a story about rebirth. He's also going to tell you a story about making one real serious mistake. So there's nothing funny about his story, because you can tell he's kind of a healthy young man now. But that wasn't always the case. But his profile, if you went back to, how old are most of you guys? 16, 17, any 18-year-old? 16, 17 mostly? Is that a tough question? Or 15? How old? 16. When he was 16, he looked a lot like you. Okay? And he did a lot of the right things that you're doing. So it can happen just about to anyone. So I'm not going to talk anymore. I do a lot of that, and I apologize. This is Anthony Sideri. Please give him your respect.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. And I want to thank Mr. Brouder for bringing me in, and what an amazing thing it is for him to be here every day, or talking to you guys about it and talking to you about his son. That goes to show how important this topic is for all of us. And there's a whole world out there revolved around giving you guys education and prevention about opiates and misuse of drugs and alcohol. And the funny thing is, however long ago I was in high school, when I was in high school, when somebody like Mr. Brouder would say, you know, you're drinking and smoking weed now, and you know, it might not lead to something else, but it might. I sat there and I said, that'll never happen to me. And it did. I became a heroin addict, and I'm going to tell you my story. And the reason I tell you that I'm a heroin addict up front, because I hope that it makes me a more effective speaker. Sometimes I get to a school, and I always have to check in at the office. I go and speak at a lot of high schools. And I go and check in at the office, and they say, oh, who are you? And I say, oh, I'm Anthony Sideri. I'm going to speak in the health class about opiates. And they'll say, oh, are you a police officer? And I say, nope. They say, are you a counselor? Nope. And they say, oh, they kind of get it. They say, oh, okay. And it's kind of like a scary thing, like there's a stigma, like, you know, that's how it should be. You should be scared of drugs. You should be scared of heroin and things like that. So anyway, I grew up in North Andover. You guys familiar? So I'll give you a little glimpse of how I was when I was a kid. I had a huge house in an awesome neighborhood and a really good family. I didn't have alcoholic, drug addict parents. I went on vacations every year. We had dinner together as a family every night. Totally great childhood. I played sports growing up, so hockey was my main sport. Freshman year in high school, I was on the varsity hockey team. And I'll give you a little glimpse of how I was freshman year. I didn't drink, and I didn't smoke weed all of my freshman year. And I even went to like great lengths not to be around it. So you guys know North Andover High. You know how there's a McDonald's across the street? I used to live like in the neighborhoods like on the other side of McDonald's. Like, so there's a trail next to McDonald's that I could have gone over the overpass, cut through the trail, and walked home, like pretty quick, 10, 15 minutes. That was rumored to be that trail where kids used to go and smoke weed after school. So as a freshman, I used to walk out the entrance of the high school, up a huge hill, all the way around, about a half hour, 45 minutes, walk home, to not have to deal with that, to not be around people smoking weed. I didn't want it to be a part of my life. I was scared of it. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then my sophomore year, I was going out to a party, and pretty typical high school thing. I was going out to a party. I was on my way there, and the captain of my hockey team was going to be at the party. Now, another little glimpse of how I was even sophomore year. Not even exaggerating, I was practicing at my house in the mirror how to say no in a cool way to being introduced to alcohol or drugs. I was in my mirror saying, oh, no, well, no, I'm all set, or no, I don't need any right now. Like, I really didn't want to do it. I got to the party, captain of my hockey team was drinking. It did something to me. It made me think like it wasn't that bad. And when he said, hey, you want a beer? I was like, yeah. It was a 2-second, no hesitation, all that leading up, wanting to say no, walking the long way home from school. Everything led up to that moment for me to say no, and I blew it, you know? And it was kind of like just to fit in, I think. I don't even know. I don't know why I said yes. So I was drinking a beer, and later that night, that same captain of my hockey team was smoking weed. And again, it like did something to me. It made me think, oh, that must not be so bad. Instead of thinking like, oh, he's bad because he's smoking weed, I was like, oh, it must not be too bad. So when he offered it to me, I said, yeah, sure. And like that night, I had a good time. I didn't get in trouble. I didn't get arrested. I didn't get caught by my parents. I actually had fun. And you know what? Like, I liked the way it made me feel. So I did it again. Like the next weekend and a few more weekends from that. And I kind of just went out during high school and partied, which at the time I thought was totally normal. I saw different groups of people doing it, different groups of kids, sports players, you know, every different group of kids I thought was just going out in their own way and hanging out with friends. And that's what me and my friends did. We drank and smoked weed. And eventually, and I should have seen the warning signs all the way back then, I think I drank a little bit to excess. Now, I never had like a water bottle full of vodka in my locker. I never went home and like closed my bedroom door and like drank by myself. But whenever I went out to a party, I would drink like as fast as I could. I'd try to drink as much as I could to get as drunk as I could. That's the way I like to drink. And I liked the way it made me feel. Like, I liked it. So I got out of high school. My father owned a business. I didn't go to college. I went to college at night. Took some classes that I wanted to take over my father's company someday. I thought that was going to be my path in life. And I took like business management and sales, accounting, stuff like that. All my other friends went off to their colleges. So at that time, I just started visiting friends on the weekends to party, which again, partying in college, I felt like it was totally normal. So I was at a party one time, and I was actually at Merrimack College. I see some Merrimack College sweatshirts. I was at a party at Merrimack College with the hockey team. So that's Division I hockey. Some of these kids were getting drafted, going to the NHL. And one of those hockey players had a prescription pill bottle. And inside the bottle were Percocets. You guys know what they are? Just to be sure. Prescription pain medication. The real name is like oxycodone. And I didn't know anything about drugs like that. The only thing I did know is how comfortable I felt at that party. I was with my friends. I was with Division I athletes. And the drug they were taking was coming out of a prescription bottle that came from a doctor. Everything about it felt safe and comfortable. And they were like, oh, dude, if you take one of these, like, you'll drink and just be more drunk. And I was like, whoa, that sounds like perfectly safe, you know? I think something that I wish I knew more about opiates. I wish I knew that I could have become addicted. I wish I knew that I could have overdosed. I didn't know any of that. I just thought it felt really safe. So I tried it. And again, I liked the way it made me feel. So I tried it again the next weekend and the next weekend, and I just kept partying like that. I would take Percocets or Vicodin and drink and smoke weed when visiting friends at college. And the thing is, I only did it on the weekends. I wasn't like taking pills during the week. I wasn't going home and drinking by myself. I was just partying with friends. Completely harmless, I felt. I always felt comfortable and safe in my environment, always. Even when I was drinking and smoking weed and taking pills in North Andover, I would be like at my friend's house, like on a nice street in a really nice house. I always felt comfortable. My environment, I think, played a big role in why I kept trying more drugs. So I started building a tolerance to oxycodone, Percocets, Vicodin, something like that. You guys learn about tolerance in school, like in health? Tolerance is such a dangerous thing when it comes to opiates, especially opiates, because you can overdose and die. And the tolerance that I was building had to do with the chemicals in my brain. So here I am taking opiates. So I'm taking 2, 3 Percocets, 4 Percocets, just to try to feel high. And that has to do with the chemicals in my brain. But my body might be like, whoa, that's a lot of drugs, even though my mind thinks I'm not high. That's the problem with building a tolerance, especially to opiates. So I started building a tolerance, taking more and more, and that's when I was introduced to OxyContin. You guys know what it is? OxyContin is a more powerful version of a Percocet. So when I was taking 4 pills, somebody was like, and when I say somebody safe and comfortable. It was like a college student, college athlete. I was always in a good environment. And someone was like, dude, you can take like half of this and it's more powerful than all those. And I was like, oh, so I'd be taking less. I had no idea that it was like more addictive, more powerful of an opiate. I didn't know what opiates were still. So I tried it. And I never took a Percocet again. I just did OxyContin. And again, I only did it on the weekends, just to party and have fun. Something else that I always like felt good about, whenever I was at a party, hanging out, drinking, smoking weed, and taking OxyContin, I could always look around and like find someone who was worse than me. It would make me feel great. Like there were guys crushing up OxyContin and sniffing it. And I'd be like, I'm not going to do that. Like that guy's worse than me. So I always felt like safe in what I was doing. Like, well, I'm just taking a pill and swallowing it and drinking a few beers and smoking weed. Like no big deal. Like a lot of people around me were doing. Until I started building a tolerance to that. So I had to take more and more OxyContin. Until one day, somebody that felt very safe to me was sniffing it. And they said, dude, you can crush it up and you could do like so much less and you get more high, it hits you faster, it's this, it's that. And I felt like, why not? So I tried it. And I never again took a pill. I just always sniffed it from that day on. And that's when it started to get worse and worse. So I started to not only do it on the weekends, but I would do like a little bit on Sunday morning. Like, why not? I'm hanging out, watching TV, whatever. Might as well do a little. And maybe my weekends started getting bigger. I started partying like Thursday nights. So now I'm doing it 4 days out of the week. And before I knew it, and I really mean that, before I knew it, because I thought I was always in control. I thought like, no big deal. I could stop at any time. I'm not as bad as some people. I got addicted, and I was sniffing OxyContin every day. My life on the outside was completely normal. I think that's what allowed me to keep doing it. My environment was always safe. I always felt comfortable, and my life was normal. I went to the gym every day after work. I went and visited friends at their colleges. I went on dates with girls. I did things that normal people do, except I was sniffing OxyContin every day. And there comes a point where it stops being fun, and it stops like, oh, I'm trying to get high, and it's more like, I just don't want to go through withdrawals. You guys know about withdrawals. Some people call it being dope sick. It's when you get addicted to opiates, and your body like doesn't like when you don't have them. And you get really sick, and it's really bad. So I just kept doing them, like a little bit every day, just to not be sick, just to be normal, to like have a normal life. That's what I thought. And then I was introduced to heroin. And I was kind of one of those people who always said that I would never do something, like I'd never sniff an OxyContin. Oh, I'll never do that. Then I did. And then I started doing more and more and building that tolerance. And then one day, somebody who felt very safe to me, college athlete, like somebody who I looked up to even, was sniffing heroin. And it's kind of a crazy thing because I never knew anyone that did heroin. I thought you had to use needles. I didn't know you could sniff it. I was crushing up an OxyContin, which was a white powder, and this person was sniffing heroin, which was brown powder. And that was the difference. It was like, oh, it's just a different color, and it's more powerful, and it's cheaper, and I can do less, and I don't have a tolerance to it yet. Like, all those things appealed to me, so I tried it. And when I say I tried it, in my mind, that's what I was doing. I was just trying it. I wasn't saying I'm going to do heroin every day now. I was just trying it. And I never did an OxyContin again. I just sniffed heroin every day. And that went on for about 2 years. And no one knew. I had a perfectly normal life, like working, apartment, car, gym. Everything was normal on the outside except I sniffed heroin all day, every day, just to be normal. Like, that's what I did. So I started building a tolerance to heroin. There were times when that tolerance, the danger of building a tolerance, really had an effect on me because I'd be sniffing so much heroin that I would be throwing up sick, but I didn't even feel high. And I think that was my body saying, like, slow down. That's a lot of heroin. And my mind's like, hey, dude, let's do more. Like, let's get high. That's the problem with building a tolerance. It's so dangerous. So that's when I was introduced to needles. And I remember the first time I shot heroin, I didn't even do it myself. Someone else was doing it. They were like, dude, you can do so much less, and it hits you better, and it's more powerful, and it's this, and it's that. And I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll try it. So I remember just sticking my arm out. I didn't even want to watch. I couldn't even, like, watch a needle going in my arm. It was, like, freaking me out. So I just held my arm out, and I let some guy shoot me up with heroin. Like a kid from North Andover from a really good family with my whole life ahead of me, just sticking my arm out and letting someone put a needle in it. It's crazy. And that's when my life got out of control. You guys feel like it already was? A little bit. I didn't. I felt like my life was completely in control. And even shooting heroin every day, I felt I can stop whenever I want. And that began the daily struggle of trying to quit opiates. I was a heroin addict, shooting up like 5 or 6 times a day, and I kept telling myself, that's the last time. Okay, I'll quit. That's it. I'm done. And every day I'd wake up, going through withdrawals, sick, and I'd say, all right, I'll just use one more time, just to not be sick. And then I would go to great lengths to tell myself I was quitting. Like, I used to shoot up, throw away all my needles, erase the drug dealer's number from my phone. I quit. That's it. I'm done. And then later that day, I'd go through the hustle and the running around trying to find drugs and needles to shoot up one more time. And I kept that going for months. And it got to the point where everyone found out that I was a drug addict. Everyone, because I couldn't hide it anymore. I got kicked out of apartments, lost my jobs. I had track marks on my arms. I started to lose weight. I started to look like a heroin addict. And people were really trying to help me. Like, my parents were calling me. When I got kicked out of my apartment, I went and stayed on someone's couch. It's kind of like running away from life. Like, I just was like, let me just get away, and I can just stop, and I'll do it on my own. And I was staying on someone's couch. My parents would call me every day. Please tell us where you are. Please let us help you. I can't believe you're doing this. And I would just keep saying, like, guys, I'm all set. I'm fine. I'm going to take care of it. I'll quit on my own. I kept saying it. I had one friend. He's like that friend who, when he buys a TV, he researches it for like 6 months. Like, has to buy like the right, best TV, you know. He actually researched addiction before he called me, and he was like learning all about it. He even talked to the director of a rehab and found out like what I had to do, the process of recovery and how to get clean and how to like quit doing heroin, because you don't just quit. It doesn't happen like that. So he called me and he said, hey, you have to go to detox because you're going to be really sick from withdrawals. So like they'll give you medication and you won't feel sick and you'll get off the drugs. Then you go to rehab. And when you get to rehab, you can learn about how to like talk to people and deal with your emotions and all this stuff that you don't know how to do because you're on drugs. And he said, then you go to a sober house after that, and you learn to live like sober and get a job and all this stuff with no drugs. And he said, tell me where you are. I'll come pick you up. I'll pay for everything. He had it all set up. And I said, dude, I'm all set. I'll take care of it on my own. Leave me alone. I'm going to quit. In fact, like I already quit. I'm done. I'm not doing it anymore. And he was like, all right. And I said, thanks, but no thanks. And the next day, the very next day, he saw me on the front page of the paper and on the news because I got arrested for a bank robbery. Like, that's where my addiction took me. That was the first time I'd ever been arrested in my life. That decision that day, at the time, I thought was the best idea ever. That's how sick and that's how, like, entrenched in addiction I was. I thought, like, I'll rob a bank, I'll get a ton of money, I'll buy a ton of heroin, and I'll just use a little bit every day to be normal. That's what I thought. And, like, I really believed it, and I thought I'd get away with it. And that decision that day put so many people's lives at risk. There was a high-speed chase with the cops. There was a bank teller who, over 9 years now, still can't get another job. She's, like, traumatized. The ripple effect of my choice, and that's what I thought at the time. This is my choice. Like, it only affects me. But it not only affects me, it affected my family. It affected anyone who knows my family. It affected my town, North Andover, in general. So that means it affected everyone from North Andover and everyone who knows someone from North Andover at the time. Like, it affected that bank teller and her family and anyone that knows her family. It affected the police officers in that town and anyone who knows them. The ripple effect of that choice that I made affected thousands and thousands of lives, and I could have cared less. Like, I really was only thinking about myself. So that arrest, my first arrest in my life, I was held with no bail. So I had to get taken to Middleton with barbed wire fences and canine dogs and guards and an orange jumpsuit. Like, no bail. I wasn't getting out. And that lasted for a month before I was even able to get out. And I went through withdrawals in jail. So I technically quit doing heroin cold turkey, which is like I went through the full withdrawals, like flopping around on the floor of a jail infirmary for 3 days. And it's not like a couple hours out of the day. It's 72 hours straight, no sleep, throwing up, cold sweats, tingly feeling in my skin that, like, you can't get rid of. The only thing that'll make you feel better is to use opiates. That's the only thing that fixes withdrawals. And the funny thing is, I was on a jail cell floor in an orange jumpsuit, having just robbed a bank and facing like 25 years in prison. And if someone came and offered me heroin, I would have done it. Imagine? Like, you think you hit rock bottom and like you'll never use again, but I totally would have, just to stop the withdrawals. Luckily, I was locked in jail and no one offered it to me. So I was able to get clean. And that decision, as bad as it was, changed my life. I've been clean and sober ever since. I ended up getting bailed out of jail after a month and going to a rehab. That was the only way I could get bailed out. The judge said, the only way you can get bailed out is if you go to rehab. So I said, of course I'll go. And when I got to rehab, I started to learn, like, how to be myself and how to live with myself without drugs. So the funny thing about doing drugs every day, it's such a fantasy world. Like, I woke up every day doing drugs, not paying bills, not dealing with emotions, nothing. It was just complete fantasy. So I got into the rehab. I started to learn about how to live and, how to live. And I started to see that my life was getting better. And that's a funny thing because I was out on bail and I was still facing all that time in jail. And I still thought, well, I'm a heroin addict and no one's ever going to trust me again and my life's ruined. But like little things were getting better and better. Like I started to feel healthy. I started exercising again. People would say like, hey, dude, you look good. Or like, hey, we're proud of you. Or my parents would say like, hey, we're really glad to have you back. Like stuff like that. Little things that were making me feel like my life was getting so much better. So I celebrated 1 year clean and sober. And that's a really hard thing to do because a lot of things happen in recovery that I didn't know how to deal with. You know, like my grandfather yelled at me like really bad. Like I called him, he was so upset and he was like, you embarrassed this family, he like really was upset and justifiably, right? I mean, I had just robbed a bank, everyone knew about it. It was like, you know, such a decision that affected my family. And I didn't know how to deal with that. Like my grandfather was really close. We were really close. I never had to deal with emotions like that. I was always just on drugs, you know, like feeling sad and feeling like I let someone down. Those were things I had never felt before. So the easiest thing to do in recovery when you deal with that stuff is to go relapse. It would have like solved everything. Like if I could just use drugs, then I won't have to feel those emotions or that pain or anything like that. But I had to stay in rehab because of the courts, and I'm really lucky that I did. So I was able to celebrate a year clean and sober, and after that I went back to court. And the judge was actually great. He kind of like outlined my life. He's like, you know, you're a good kid and you came from a good family and a good town and you've only been arrested once, clean record, and the director of the rehab you're at says great things about you and all these awesome things. And he said, but you robbed a bank. So he sentenced me to 3.5 years and 5 years probation after that. So a year clean and sober, I went back to jail, back in a jumpsuit, going to be there for a while. I remember walking in to jail first day. I'm carrying all my stuff, blanket, pillows, all that. And it's just like the movies, like everyone's looking at you. Everyone's like, you know, sizing you up or whatever. Jail is such a negative place. And like the goal in jail probably is to be the worst, you know, to be the most negative, worst person you can be. I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to try to fit in inside the jail. So my first day there, I scream out, walk into the cell like, hey, I've been clean and sober for a year, and I don't want to be around any negative people. I yelled that, like unrealistic, but I don't even know why I did. And I said, I'm going to start a recovery Bible study. Anyone who wants to join, come see me. And that was the first time in my life that I actually stood up for something that I believed in, that I actually I feel like I influenced people because people did join that recovery group and it became a really positive thing. And I actually gained a respect inside the jail for being a good person. I didn't gain respect by beating everyone up and being this big tough guy. People respected me because I said what I was good. I did what I said. You know, I didn't want to do drugs and no one saw me do drugs. I said I was going to start this group. I started the group. I always did the next right thing and tried to be the best version of myself despite my surroundings, and it worked out. And my time flew by. I felt more free inside a jail cell than I did when I was addicted to drugs. Because I used to wake up every day and shoot heroin. That's like prison. I answered to heroin. Everything I did revolved around heroin. Now that I was in jail, healthy, reading, exercising, I felt great. Being a part of recovery was huge for me. So my time flew by, I got out, and my life now is amazing. I couldn't describe it any other way, I don't think. If someone had told me that my life would be this good, I would have never believed them. I'm clean and sober for over 9 years. I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I live my life differently today. I live with integrity. Integrity is something like a quality that I never even, it just was a word to me. Today, it's a way of life and a quality. I try to do the right thing even when no one's looking. To me, that's integrity. So when I was a kid in North Andover, I'll just give you a little quick, like, how I was. I was so shy, like, so shy. I had a crush on this girl starting in first grade. I graduated high school with her, never talked to her once. Like, that's how big of a crush I had on her. And I wake up to her every day now. We're married. I literally got to marry the girl of my dreams. And it's because of the way I live my life now. Not drinking, not doing drugs, living with integrity, honesty, being a person of influence in a positive way. That's the only way she would even ever give me a chance. She's not the type to date someone fresh out of jail. So we have 2 kids, 2 daughters, Eva, who is 3, and Audrey's 5 months. I get to be a father who's there and conscious and like the best father that I can be. I get to be the best husband that I can be. We have a house in North Andover in an awesome neighborhood. People brought cookies like when we moved in, like welcome to the neighborhood. I feel like I'm such a part of the community. When I was in jail, I was part of the Scared Straight program. So that was not like that show Beyond Scared Straight where they get screamed at. It's more like you guys would take a tour of the jail and then you'd get spoken to. And I was on a panel of people. I spoke after this guy who grew up in the projects, was dealing drugs like at the age of 10, and killed a bunch of people. He would speak to the people, and then I would. And my story was so much different than his, but the guy who organized Scared Straight said, your story is the it can happen to anyone story. Because like someone who grows up in the projects and is dealing drugs at the age of 10, most people would say, oh yeah, he's going to end up in jail one way or another. But someone who grows up in a nice town like this with a good family, you don't think of it like that. So my story was the it can happen to anyone story. And I always wanted to get out and come to schools and share my story, and now I get to. And it's amazing. My wife and I started a little charity in Lawrence to help kids. That's something I always wanted to do. When I was in jail, I got my barber's license. It's like such a weird thing, but like they had a barber program. I worked at the shop every day. Now I cut hair on Main Street in North Andover every day. I cut the chief of police's hair and all the firemen and a lot of the cops. Like, I'm a part of the community that I never thought I would be. You know, I have a past. That past is going to stay with me the rest of my life. That's something about the choices that we make, how much they stick with us forever. I'm a convicted felon for the rest of my life. Anytime someone does a background check or a Corey check, it always comes up. I'm also in a small town. So in the back of people's minds in my town, I'm that guy who used to be a heroin addict that committed that crime. And I have to overcome that every day. So I stay clean and sober, and I do the next right thing and let my actions speak for my character. So now everyone has a respect for me in town because I come and do things like this, speak at schools and whatnot. So my life is amazing. That's all I can say now about it because I never thought I'd be where I am now. And I want to say, too, and I can open it up for questions. You guys can ask anything you want to know about addiction or anything like that. And I know that everyone that's listening has someone in their life, whether it's a friend of a friend or a family member or someone who struggles with addiction. It reaches so many people. And I feel like you guys are in a huge position of influence. People look up to you. That was something that changed my life. When that captain of my hockey team was smoking weed, it changed the image for me. It made it seem like it was okay. And not that smoking weed made me become a heroin addict, but it didn't help. It made it so much easier for me to take that pill that time. Because I don't think like I would have been a person who had never really drank or smoked weed or anything and then be willing to try a prescription pill. I think it made that choice easier. So that's it for me. You guys were amazing. Thank you so much for listening. And I'll open it up for questions.
So first off, thank you so much for your address, your speech. It was really amazing to hear, and I think the high schoolers really appreciated it. I do have a question. Do you give presentations like this to addicts or other former addicts? And if you do have conversations with them, do they relay similar messages to you about in their addiction, just trying to take a little bit a day to kind of just live a normal life, just to get by and feel normal and not necessarily trying to get out of their minds high? I'm wondering if that's a common experience among addicts, if you know.
I think absolutely it is. I think there comes a time when it stops being fun. See, like I used to go out and party and have like fun with my friends, like at a college party, like at a frat house, wherever we were, it was fun. By the time I was addicted to OxyContin, like it stopped being so much fun. It started being more like a job because I had to do it to not be sick. I think that's where the line, and it happens with a lot of addicts where it's not fun anymore. And if you ask an addict, like in their addiction, trying to get money every day, to get drugs and use drugs every day, all day, are you having fun? And I doubt any of them would say yes. It's not fun. Most want to quit, but it's really hard. And it's hard to deal with things when you do quit. I think that's another huge risk for overdose. And I talk about overdose a lot because it's prevalent now. Does anyone know anyone that has overdosed? That's a lot of people. See, like I think in my high school, if you had said that back then, no one would have raised their hand. We didn't know anyone that was doing hard drugs like that. But to know someone who's overdosed, so a huge risk for overdose is relapse. Because you get clean after you're doing heroin for so long and you build that tolerance. Once you're clean, it's out of your system. And when you relapse and you use again, you try to use like the same amount that you used to use, but it doesn't work like that because the tolerance is gone. And a lot of people, I would say, I don't know the statistic, but a lot of people who overdose, I bet you it was their first time using after they've been clean for a while.
And that's one thing we wanted to leave you with. If you do have someone that you're really worried about, and they don't have to be shooting dope, but if there's someone that you care about and you feel like you could trust me, I'm here every morning, I'd be more than happy to talk to you because I know it's really private, but that's why I bring it to you. I'm shaking inside. I never wanted that day to come for my boy. Why my son? Why did it happen to him? So if you have someone that you're worried about, there's someone here just waiting to listen to your story in privacy, totally 100% confidential. If you think I want to do this, just like I know you guys want to run out, and I don't blame you, this breaks my heart to come up here and do this and have people come here, but I'll do it. I'll do it for you because it could happen to you down the road. It could happen to someone that you love, and we don't want any more children to die, okay? So even though I know right now you're thinking it's never going to happen, I hope and pray it doesn't.
I like coming to schools to share my story. I really do, because it's needed right now. I get calls almost every day from different towns wanting me or something about awareness to go on in their school. And I think the best day for Mr. Brouder and for myself and for a lot of people is when I'm not needed to come speak in a school. The problem is so bad right now. There are overdoses happening every day. And it's like, what can we do to stop this? I think prevention is huge, awareness, education. But the day that I don't get calls to come speak in towns, I think will be a great day because it means that we kind of like solve this problem. Because why isn't it scary enough to not do? You know, like heroin, like or even a prescription pill. Why doesn't that scare us? You know, like I thought it was interesting because of the environment I was in and that people like other people were doing it. I thought like, oh, I'd like to try that. Like, why didn't that scare the hell out of me, you know? Shouldn't it? And I think that's what we're trying to do is scare you in a way that's like, this stuff's for real. Like people are dying and then people have to live with it for the rest of their lives. It's horrible. So when I don't get a call to come to a town, I think I'll be really happy. And you guys, like, again, you're in positions of influence. And the funny thing is, whether you're a sport captain or not, everyone's in a position of influence. I feel like every moment of every day is a chance that I can influence somebody. So with my actions, I try to do the next right thing. Because there could be that 1 minute where I'm like losing my temper or I'm doing something wrong or whatever, and someone sees me and thinks, oh, well, that guy talks about like doing the right thing and he's not, so I'm not. You know, it's like every moment is a chance to influence someone else's life. Always think of it like that. Anyone who has younger brothers or sisters, they're all looking up to you.
And we want to make it clear one thing, and then I'm going to definitely let you go. This is an ugly, ugly disease. So if you have a father or an uncle or a mother or an aunt, and she's an alcoholic, and you're thinking to yourself, it almost makes it sound like he's some kind of hero because he got clean and sober. I hate my uncle. He's a jerk when he's drunk. Or my aunt left my uncle's whole family because she'd rather do heroin than be a good mother. It's an ugly, ugly disease, but it's the only disease that will step over people instead of reaching out and giving them a hand. I know addiction's hard to understand. When I was your age, I thought it's totally willpower, And I've had to learn the hard way that there's a lot of more layers to it. So if you remember anything today, remember one thing, that we care about you, and number two, if there is someone that you're worried about, don't wait. Don't wait. You might not be able to help them, but at least you tried. You went down there, you got the old man Brouder, and you said, listen, can you give me 5 minutes to talk? Not that we can cure anyone, but maybe that one person can be helped by a conversation, because that's a lot of times that's just what they need. All right? Well, thank you for being so polite. I know it's a sad topic. And if
You
it's a
guys were
sad topic
amazing.
for you, imagine, But you guys are the leaders, and that's why we're going to you. So thank you so much.